Hello, my name is Chase Diebold, and I will be showcasing the differences between Greek and Christian depictions of the afterlife and how their views shaped their artistic expression of the afterlife. I will be referring to both the classical and late Greek periods for Greek art and to the Gothic medieval period for Christian art. Throughout all of human history, we have wondered what comes after death, what lies beyond our own mortality. This question comes up whenever someone loses a loved one, has a close call with death, and most famously when watching the first guy try some poisonous berries. Since humanity has always had a fascination with death and the afterlife, it is only natural that it should bleed into the artistic world, the most life-draining profession of them all. But the Greeks and Christians had very different ideas of what comes after death. In this video I will try to explain the differences between the two. Firstly, we need to understand some of the general artistic styles of the Greeks to see how it translates to their religious artwork. The Greek concept of art was in its strong anatomical accuracy and adherence to nature, to create the idealized perfect form. This was most clearly seen in their sculptures of humans, which sought to capture animated forms as well as emotion and attractiveness. This gave rise to the interpretation of gods as being the peak of human design. This humanization of divinity allowed the Greeks to explain the unknown, such as the weather, stars, and even death. Death, particularly, was not often featured in the earlier ages of Greek artwork. Instead, the underworld was thought of as an unending darkness. Hades, the god of the underworld, also became synonymous with death and the afterlife. Temples and statues were erected to him, but images of the underworld would not become prominent until the later Greek period. This marble sculpture of Hades standing next to Cerberus while holding a bident paints one of the best depictions of how the Greeks thought of death. Hades is a stern and cold, but also impartial figure. Though he stood as tall and proud as any god did, he generally stuck to his business and judged each person in death with utmost accuracy. Death, similarly, does not discriminate and treats everyone in the same way once they've reached the end. In the later period of Greek history, the Apulian people would take a liking to Greek art, thanks to their strong ties to the Greeks through their geography and trade. Here we have a funerary vessel depicting an underworld scene, and a battle between the Greeks and Amazons. It was made out of terracotta in the Apulian region of southern Italy around 360 to 340 BC. This funerary vessel depicts a scene of the underworld, which features Hades and his wife Persephone serving wine to the god Dionysus. Dancing around these central characters are the figures relating to Dionysus, such as Perseus, a follower of Dionysus, Pentheus, who was mistaken for a beast and sacrificed during a Dionysian ritual, and Hermes, the messenger god, who directed the dead of the underworld. Beneath this scene, you can see the forest in Paniskos playing with the watchdog of the underworld, Cerberus. This was one of, if not the only depictions of Dionysus visiting the underworld, implying that the gods don't often mingle with each other. We can infer from these depictions and tales of the underworld that the Greeks did indeed have an underworld in their religion, but it was not a black and white afterlife. The people generally went to the same place regardless of their actions in life, except for mythological beings deserving of extracurricular punishment, or heroes whose family ties netted them a better spot in the underworld. This somber and dreary idea of the afterlife led people to seek a better lot in death by performing greater action in life. It was though the Greeks' belief in death as an impartial and final figure that their artistic renditions of the underworld featured dark and somber colors, or painted a picture of a stoic figure. Their art always had a sense of neutrality in it. The gods were in charge of the mortals who passed on, but they by no means mingled with the dead. They always showed the gods and denizens of death and the afterlife as separated from the dead, like the king watching his subjects from the comfort of his own castle walls. On the other side of things, Christian depictions of the afterlife are far more black and white, though they do have their own set of nuances. While the Greeks' artwork sought to create a convincing illusion of reality, sculpting their gods and figures in a very ideal, human way, Christian artwork sought to make a clear divide between heaven and earth, depicting the divinity of God and the imperfection of humanity, for all have fallen short of heaven. In the Bible, there exists heaven, where the believers of God are said to be rewarded equally to their actions in life, and hell, where the unbelievers are punished accordingly to their misdeeds in life. As we can see here in Giotto de Bondon's fresco, The Last Judgment in the Scrovegni Chapel in Pedusa, which was painted roughly in the 1300s, hell is a horrid place. The harsh reds, blacks, and whites create a sense of chaos and evil, and the many human bodies that inhabit this area of the picture stand out against the disorder in the background. Sinners are sent into hell for their lack of faith to be eternally punished for their misdeeds. We can see the prince of hell, Satan, Lucifer, or the devil, is depicted as a bloated and ugly figure, eating the bodies of men and women, while his demon minions run around, rounding up more lost sinners for his consumption. The devil's wish to consume the souls of men in spite of God is worn clear on the fresco sleeve, acting as a warning to the people of the world. Depictions of hell in Christian art adhere religiously to the descriptions in the Bible, as a method to warn sinners of their fate should they stray from God. While hell is presented as a dark and fiery and evil place, heaven is the exact opposite. It is described as being the ultimate plane of divine power, touched by God's love. It is said that a perfect and gleaming paradise beyond human comprehension. This abstract idea of heaven goes beyond what people could paint, being so good that you just gotta wait and see it. More often than paint heaven, Christian artists, or those commissioned by them, would paint scenes of Christ coming down to earth, putting heaven's light into human perspective, depicted beautifully in the Coronation of the Virgin by Fra Angelico in 1434. The Virgin Mary is being crowned by God, while a crowd of onlookers watch in awe. The divinity of heaven shines rays of golden light down upon the scene at the coronation, granting a glimpse into heaven. Christian artwork was also often commissioned by the churches themselves to decorate their chapels in praise of God. They were very picky about what was hung on their walls, requiring a deep respect to be put into the art to show the divinity of God and his creations. As the author of Gothic art from the 12th to 15th century, Andrew Martindale, writes, "To these writers, the highest task of man was to attempt to know the truth which resided in the eternal world." Christian thought was profoundly affected by this outlook, and Christian philosophers came to teach that the visible world was only worthy of attention to the extent that it reflected and revealed some aspect of divinity. Because of their strong ties with the religion, Christian art was often praised more for what was depicted than how it was made. Martindale further writes, "This created a division between matter and its revealed content. As John Scotus Erigena, the 9th century scholar, wrote, we understand a piece of wood or stone only when we see God in it. Earlier and later examples of this type of thought are not difficult to find, and it will be apparent in the reflection of this kind effectively excluded all appreciation of style of art. Art derived its importance from what was represented and not how it was achieved." So in short, the Greeks believed that death was the product of the gods, and that the afterlife was impartial in its treatment of those who had died, except in extreme cases. It was often thought of as just the last stop on the road of life, and that actions, rather than belief, were what mattered. In their art, they showed this by depicting the god of the underworld and the underworld itself as a neutral yet stern darkness. Christians, on the other hand, believe that the death is the moment when your eternal life is decided. Your belief, or lack thereof, determined where you went, and your lifestyle according to your belief determined your reward or punishment respectively. Heaven was reserved for those who lived by God, and as such was filled with imagery of light and beauty, while hell was depicted as fiery, horrid, and painful, reserved only for lost sinners. Thank you for watching, and have a wonderful day.